Hey YouTube, welcome back to Dwayne's World. So it's probably been about 9 or 10 days since I threw down my perennial rye on my front lawn. And I gotta tell you, I'm pretty disappointed. Yes. You wanna find out more? You better stay tuned. All right, guys. So this is why I'm so disappointed. I've hardly had any germination at all from the perennial rye that I threw down. So, when I saw this, I kind of figured I'd give it a little more time. But even then, it's been too long. And I'm getting a tiny bit of germination, as you might be able to see. But at the same time, nowhere near what it should look like. So let me go ahead and turn my camera around here and kind of talk to you guys on why this happened. Right. So when I talked to a buddy of mine, and we're kind of both brainstorming here to figure out what happened. I looked at the first thing I looked at was pre-emergent. When was the last time I truly applied? And I went back, and this is why you got to keep a journal. I went back and I looked, and I saw that I applied one of two apps, the second app, back in March. So at that time, that should have carried me through the summer. And by now, though, being almost 6 months later, I should not be having that much pre-emergent in the soil that would have really affected the germination. But that was like my first thought. So then the second thing, watering. Am I overwatering? Am I underwatering? And I looked at a lot of research, and basically what I found was that the trick to watering is that obviously you want to keep the seed wet. However, you can overwater, which is going to prevent oxygen from being able to get to the seed, which is ultimately going to affect germination. So just to be on the safe side, because I knew I was getting enough water, I backed it down slightly. I removed one or two of the cycles from the day to kind of alleviate a little bit of the watering. I felt like I was getting enough watering to where even if I backed it off, I was still going to be okay. So after those two things were ruled out, I figured give it a couple more days, see what's going on, and nothing still, very little. So what I started thinking about, and then talking to my buddy also, he asked me, when was your seed tested, or what was the date on your bag? Do you still have your bag? And so I went and I looked at the bag, and sure enough, the bag that I got from Amazon, from a distributor on Amazon. Now it's a Berenberg seed, but this has nothing to do with Berenberg. They did not do anything wrong. However, the distributor that used this bag or sold this bag to me was a bag from almost a year ago, is when it was tested. So my seed is almost a year old. And that, ultimately, in my opinion, is why I'm not getting any germination. You do not want to use expired or old seed from that long ago. And I know that's what the problem is. So with that, I decided, you know what? I'm gonna apply some more seed. So went and bought a new bag and went ahead and bought some topper. I think that's gonna help it out. And so let's go ahead and lay it down. So I wasn't planning on doing a overseeding part 2.5. But that's just what this video will be about. Okay, so this is what I'm gonna be applying to my lawn here. Brand new perennial rye, 10-pound bag there, and I decided to add topper to it, more so for the nutritional aspect of it, to really kind of help feed the soil versus keeping the seed in place, but it will do both. And with that, let's go ahead and throw it down. All right, so I went ahead and loaded in my seed here into the Scotch drop spreader. Have my dial set to a 7. So I think that would probably be a good rate for me to be able to do a couple different multiple passes in different directions just so I can get even coverage. So let's give this a second try, I guess, right? right, so here it is. I'm going to be throwing down 3 bags of this Kellogg's topper on top of my seed using this compost spreader that I borrowed from a buddy of mine. So this should work out pretty well. I think based on my calculation, 3 bags should absolutely cover it. I might have a little bit extra, which is okay. I'd rather have too much than not enough. And with that, let's go ahead and throw it down. All right, guys, there she is, going ahead and watering it in. This is actually 4 bags of topper. I thought 3 was going to cover it, but it didn't. Need to run back to Home Depot and pick up an extra bag. So now, though, I think we're going to be in good shape. Just want to make sure I was able to get it in thick in certain areas. As you can kind of see there underneath the tree, it's starting to puddle up a little bit. So that's the whole point of the topper, is to ensure that that seed stays in place. But I'm very happy with the result, you know. So some may be wondering, well, Dwayne, did you use any fertilizer when you threw that seed down? Because maybe that's why you had issues. I did not, but let me explain why, and I don't believe it was a contributing factor for this reason. I had done a soil test over a month ago. When the results came back, all of the macros were high. So I knew I had enough nitrogen, enough potassium, enough phosphorus, and in fact, I had way too much phosphorus of those 3. And I've always had high amounts of phosphorus. So if I added a starter fertilizer, if you look at the formulation on most starter fertilizers, it is going to be equal, if not higher, than the nitrogen and or the potassium inputs. So because of that, I decided, you know what, let me go ahead and hold off on any fertilizer and then kind of evaluate. So the more I kept thinking about it, I thought, you know what, I probably should have added something to the soil. So I went ahead and did that, and I'll show you guys in this video here of what I decided to do. All right, so let me just quickly get in here and show you guys what I'll be using to fertilize my overseeded lawn. Now this is Humic Max's 1608, which I definitely absolutely love and use this traditionally throughout the growing season. So I figured the 1608 would probably be a good formulation. Now, as I went ahead and backed down the rate, so I'll only be applying about 2 pounds per thousand versus the bag rate of 3 pounds per thousand. So with that, let's throw it down. All right, so what I'm going to use to apply the fertilizer is just a hand spreader here. I do not have a huge amount of square footage, so generally a lot of times I'll just use one of these hand spreaders in order to fertilize my front lawn versus getting out the big spreader. My Anderson spreader will be absolute overkill for this application. So that's why I'm going to go ahead and just use the hand spreader here. I currently have it set to number 3. All right, so all that's left now after I throw down that fertilizer is to go ahead and water it in. And when it came to the fertilizer and using a 1608, I know it's not typically a fertilizer that you would use as a starter fertilizer. I would have really liked to have went with the 10-10-10. My phosphorus levels are really high. I did not want to be throwing more phosphorus at the lawn. That's the last thing my lawn needs right now from a macronutrient standpoint is more phosphorus. So the 1608 I felt was a good compromise at the lower rate, because that way I'm not throwing a whole lot of nitrogen at it, I'm not throwing phosphorus at it, and I'm still getting a good dose of potassium, which will definitely help the overall health of the lawn. We'll get on to the rest of the video now. All right, guys, so here we are, the end of part 2.5. You know, this is not the way an overseeding project should go, but at the same time, it's sometimes what happens. You know, I could just do TV magic and, you know, pretend it never happened and you guys would never know. But I'm not going to do that. I want to be honest with you guys, as I always believe you should, and I've preached about before on my channel, is about really being transparent about problems that you have in the lawn, problems that you have with different projects, and that we're all one family to be able to fix these problems and work together and share knowledge, you know, across many forums. So now I think with the topper, with the new seed that I know is a quality seed that I picked up locally here, but it is Oregon grown. It's a rye that my buddy had used year after year after year, and his lawn looks phenomenal every winter when he overseeds. So I know I'm gonna have a great looking lawn. But, you know, kind of the saga continues. You know, my front lawn has been such a pain this year. And now, you know what, one more jab. You know, they figure, you know what, Dwayne, you're not gonna get it just yet. You gotta work a little bit harder. But that's okay, because at least you guys get some enjoyment out of it, right? I hope you guys enjoyed today's content, and as always, be excellent and party on.